All right, well, let's get going. Good afternoon or good morning if you're over with me here on the West Coast. Thank you for standing by and welcome to today's Cloud Services Community Webinar. Today we have Nick Mader, the Worldwide Partner Enablement Manager, and John Thurston, Channel Manager at Oracle, discussing the topic 5 key steps partners can take to monetize open source software. All phone lines are currently in a listen-only mode, and later will be a question and answer session with some additional instructions being given at that time. Now, you can ask a question at any time using the chat window located in the control panel, and all chat questions will be answered at the end of the presentation with the rest of the Q&A. Today's session is also being recorded, and everyone on the call will get a copy of the recording and slides. Nick, Don, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, great. Thanks, Sam. Again, like Sam said, my name is Nick Mader, and with me is Don Thurston. We're going to split the presentation in half today. And so we're both from the MySQL channel organization, which is part of Oracle. And so again, like Sam said, we're going to talk about key steps to monetizing open source software today. So safe harbor statement to start with. If you guys have ever been on an Oracle webcast before, you might be familiar with this. So lawyer stuff out of the way. All right, just quick agenda today. So we're going to start out with the open source background, just so everyone's familiar with it. Then we're just going to talk real quickly about the open source database market. Then we're going to jump into the 5 key steps for monetizing open source. And because we are from the MySQL organization, we're going to talk a little bit about MySQL. Otherwise, our management might get upset with us. Yeah, we'll go through this, guys. Just stay with us, and we'll take questions at the end. All right, so the open source software background. All right, so some of you guys on this call are familiar already with open source and what it means. So this might be a refresher, but just to review and make sure everyone's on the same page here, we're just going to go through this real quick. So open source software is software whose source code is available for modification or enhancement by anyone. So basically, source code is the part of the software that us users never see. It's the code that the programmers use to basically make the software work the way it's supposed to work. So again, with open source software, everyone's free to play with that. Although there still are certain terms apply, you can't just do anything with it. So open source software is the opposite of proprietary or closed source software. Examples of proprietary software would be Oracle database, Microsoft Word, Adobe Photoshop, applications or other database products that you guys probably use in some shape or form, your customers use. So the reason open source is so popular is because it allows its users to have more control of the software, basically how it's used and the flexibility on how it can be used. And also one of the key things is the faster time to market. So a lot of times open source software might be free, might be available as what they call a community version, where anyone can just download it and start using it right away. So it strips out that procurement process. So a lot of time, developers will they need to build an app, they'll just go download a open source software, open source product of some sort to get started right away. And a lot of times, their management might not even know what they're using. But because a lot of times it might be available for free, there's no procurement process there. With open source, you have broader support models. So you have, again, if it's a free product, the open source product might have its own community where if people need support, they probably are just getting it from Googling a question, or there might be chat rooms or discussion forums where people just kind of share best practices. And then from there are also commercial vendors that offer support, for the open source products where someone, the customers might actually be paying for support, where they can actually call an 800 number or an email someone to get 24/7 support. That's kind of similar to what we have with MySQL. We have a community product that anyone can download. Then we also have a commercial product, our MySQL Enterprise Edition, which people get support directly from Oracle. So open source does not necessarily mean free of cost. When they originally designed that term or coined the term open, even more in the sense of freedom, to people what they can do with the software. And like I just mentioned, there's commercial versions of open source available where people will add additional services or support can be offered. All right, open source software. So why and where? So some of the this information here was gathered from a 2006 study by company called Black Duck Software, which did a basically a study on the future of open source, where I think they polled something like 1,300 or 1,500 users to get the feedback here. So the top reasons for using open source software, from the study, was the quality of solutions, the competitive features and technical capabilities, and the ability to customize and fix the software. So I think with the first two, these are things people might not think about with open source software necessarily, but as open source industry has kind of matured in the past 10 years, and more people provide feedback using the product, the quality of solutions available from the open source market is really on par with the proprietary market, and we'll kind of cover that a little bit later too. And so where companies are using open source, at least in the data center, the top three areas were operating system, database, and development tools. So maybe no surprise there, but there's a big focus on the data center today, and I think that'll continue in the future. All right, so just some examples of open source, just to get everyone familiar here in case you still have questions or wondering. So we're looking at some of the different product types here. So with database, you obviously have MySQL, and you also have Postgres, Maria, Mongo. Operating systems, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the first two, which are super popular: Android, Linux. Open source programming languages, you have the three Ps: Perl, PHP, Python, and also Ruby. Then application software, see some of them there, and then content management. So again, just some examples of open source software. Again, a lot of these products have free versions available that people can download and use right away, but you're not going to go download it right now. And then also a lot of these also have a commercial version available too, where the vendor has an enterprise version or a paid-for version that usually offers support and some additional features. All right, so just talking a little bit more about the commercial versions of open source software. So again, like I just said, many companies also offer a commercial version. Just the background on MySQL, use it as an example. So I think in 1995 or so, we were originally created as a database application for personal usage. But as the MySQL product became more popular, the creators of MySQL were encouraged to form a company and create a commercial version to be sold. So another example here is Red Hat. Red Hat is obviously super popular. They're probably one of the most successful commercial companies, open source companies ever. And then another one here, just another example is LifeRay. LifeRay is a portal solution that's become very popular the past few years. I use it as an example here because I've been to a few of their events, and they have a really strong following and a lot of really good enterprise use cases. So end users will usually push demand for support or additional features. So some end users will create their own features, but a lot of them rely on the vendor to do so. And the great thing about open source is that it really seeds the market, with the free version. So it creates low-hanging fruit because you have this base of thousands or even millions of users, at least in MySQL's case, who are already using the community version or the free version. So you kind of have this built-in set of warm leads that you can prospect because you know that they're already using the product, which kind of makes that initial conversation easier to have because you don't need to convince them to use the product; they're already using it. And really, what you're trying to do maybe is upsell them on the commercial version. All right, cool. Now we're just going to drill down a little bit on the open source database market. Again, that'll be kind of be the focus for the presentation is the open source database market. Just because Don and I come from MySQL, so that's kind of what we're most familiar with. But I think a lot of the key steps we'll talk about later, can be expanded to other areas of open source as well, anywhere in the IT stack. So this is an interesting stat here. This is from Gartner when they did a study on the state of relational open source databases. So you can see here that by 2018, more than 70% of new in-house applications will be developed on an open source relational database, RDBMS is nice short acronym there. So this figure shows that open source is not a fad, or really it's not a niche area either. It's here to stay, and it's quite likely the future, at least when it comes to database. Obviously 2018 is quickly approaching. So another interesting stat here from Gartner. By 2018, estimate 50% of commercial relational database instances will have been converted to open source databases. So again, what these figures really show is that, maybe you're already seeing this with your customers, but these changes are happening, and they're going to happen soon. And as we'll discuss later, this is not something you should shy away from, as there is money to be made in this open source market, and specifically when it comes to the database area. So what are the key drivers for the growth of the open source database market? Well, 10, 15 years ago, when it came to open source databases or just any open source product really, skills were at a minimum, management tools were few, and the software was relatively immature. So at that point, 10, 15 years ago, the TCO was not necessarily lower than those of a proprietary database offering. But things have changed to the point where the cost of managing an open source database and the availability of skills is now on par with those of commercial offerings. And what all this translates to is a lower TCO for your customers, which is obviously always going to be the main driver. Usually is price. So all the other details here just help support that lower TCO. All right, cool. So now we're going to jump into the 5 key steps here for monetization. And first up, we're going to talk about knowing the bottom-up adoption model. So again, on this example, we're going to talk a little about the database layer, just to be more specific, but this can also translate to some other IT layers as well. So quite frequently, developer or system admin companies, might be facing an ad hoc need to create some sort of application, and they're going to make the choice to develop that application on an open source product. Typically the community or the free version of the product. Usually this is his or her own initiative. Again, like we talked about earlier with open source, the key drivers, the freedom and the quick time to market. So they're not going to go through procurement or anything like this. So once that admin or the developer has made that decision, it's important to consider what we call the power curve of open source deployments. So initially the application is typically not critical to the organization, but as more and more people discover the value of that application and rely on it and possibly expand the scope, many of these apps become important and subsequently can be termed either business critical or mission critical, which basically means they're essential to the organization to perform one or more of its tasks. So on this next slide here, we'll look at a more specific example. So as you see here, in this example, let's say that there's a sales department organization and it's having issues getting accurate reports from IT. So they pick someone from IT or do a bit of shadow IT, and they build a data mart to query an order system to serve sales management with sales data reports. So maybe this app is only helping a few people, on day one. And let's say 4, 5, 6 months down the line, this application is working so well that access has been extended to executive management, and the accounting system is added as a second data source. So what happens at that point, again, 6 months in this example, it could be a year, it could be 2 years, but there's an inflection point where that application becomes, moves from nice to have to becoming mission critical. So at that point, the data mart has, the entire sales force, the executive team, leaders of finance, marketing, all these other departments, 200, 300, 400 people, whatever, using it. And there's also now 3 backends reporting to that database where you're getting ordering system, accounting, and CRM. So, it's not unusual for the initial deployment to become business critical well under 12 months, especially how fast things move today. The key for customers is being ready for when that business critical moment hits. And I think this is where partners, have a unique advantage here, is because your relationships with your end users, the relationships that you have, and depending on what areas you guys are supporting them in, you may be witnessing something like this happening. And, it's important to be able to step in and offer them a commercial version of an open source product right away to make sure they have the support, from that vendor and maybe additional features that they'll need to continue using this app, as they become accustomed to using it. So I think it's a great area for partners to look out for things like this, especially if this application is built on an open source product, that you can step in there and help them, navigate the path to be going, directing them what commercial products to go with. All right. The next step is proper messaging based on job role. So, when you're talking to different sets of people within the end user, you know, what their needs are and kind of the best ways to position, the product with them. So again, we're talking about a little bit of a specific database, and this one we're talking about a little bit of database as a service, so which is becoming more and more popular, as people move to the cloud. So again, we'll start by looking at the needs of the different technology and business level personas, which is obviously always important to properly position. So we'll start at the top. So we have the application developers and the development managers, who are the consumers of database, or the cloud situation database as a service. So they're basically looking for a dial tone. They don't want to spend time on database provisioning and management. They just want something that just works like a utility. Just like when you pick up the phone, there's dial tone, or when you plug something into an outlet, there's power. The developers, they want access to database resources quickly, so they can focus on building apps and innovating. They don't want to be bothered with management. Again, these guys have an independent streak, and a lot of times they're the ones that are just downloading the free open source community product to get started. Going down the next layer, we have the IT and DBA management, which represents the builders of the database or database as a service, for internal consumption. So these guys, they want to know how to be able to provide the dial tone for the developers and the different lines of business. So they're looking for ways to more easily provision and manage database instances, to reduce their tasks and efforts. In many organizations, the number of databases, is increasing, but the number of DBAs is not increasing, and they need to focus on more strategic actions in order to help accelerate time to market for new applications. So they'll value solutions that can help them achieve that. All right, next line of business, or next layer here we talk about are the LBs, line of business. So they're the end users of these applications, sales department, marketing, HR, whoever. So usually they use, they might be using SaaS or prepackaged applications in the cloud, but oftentimes they also want to build bespoke applications, maybe for for ad hoc situations, for something very very specific. So they want to get access to resources rapidly in order to move forward. So many times they're the ones who resort to shadow IT to get things done quickly. And what they really care about are SLAs around performance, security, and availability. And then finally at the bottom here we have the C-level executives who really they're just looking to reduce costs by transforming CapEx into OpEx and by reducing operating expenses. So they also want to improve the productivity of IT and leverage the cloud to build a more agile organization that can innovate faster and succeed in this digital economy. All right, so the third key step here is to become your customer's trusted open source advisor. So we're going to go back here to some figures from that 2016 Future of Open Source study. So as you can see with these numbers, customers need help with open source initiatives. About 50% of the respondents said they have no formal policy or procedures for open source software. Over 50% are not satisfied with their ability to understand known security vulnerabilities and open source software components. So I think, as you can see from those numbers, companies clearly need help with an open source strategy. So who's going to be there to help them through that process? Who's going to be their trusted advisor? So this is really a great opportunity, for you as a partner to get your foot in the door by offering your services. Those services can be, anything from training, consulting, to actually implementing the solutions, and also creating some sort of managed service product. And obviously, this is where the highest margins are for you guys too, right? Is in the services. Then also, as always, no surprise, end users are always seeking new ways to reduce expenses, especially their IT expenses. And as we learned earlier, while exploring the bottom-up adoption model, end users can start with the free version and move to the paid version. When that application is supported by it, it's mission critical. But who's going to be there to guide them through that process? It's not as easy as it all sounds. Customers, they need someone to help them through that process and be their trusted advisor. And this is kind of just drilling down more on the service opportunities for you guys when it comes to that market. Again, we're talking, this slide's a little specific database, but really this can be more for anything. Part of the current industry trend is toward data center transformation. Many customers now are outsourcing their data centers to the public cloud, these customers are looking for a way to shift resources from managing data center operations, not worrying about maintenance and migrations, and more to focusing on areas of strategic innovation. So again, focus on the database layer here, but of course, when it comes to managed services, it can include multiple layers of the IT stack, not just database. What you guys can do, maybe you're doing already with some other products, but you can bundle this into an annual or monthly offering, and price it out to your customers as you see fit. With migration, obviously all the talk today is about moving to the cloud, but it's not an easy or simple process. Just snap your fingers and you're in the cloud. So end users, they need someone to rely on to take them through these steps, especially when it comes to the database layer, as database, all the information that's held in the database is usually critical information, and it's super important to keep the business running successfully. So who can be their trusted advisor to walk them through those steps? And then another great way to increase margin or make more money basically is to develop repeatable intellectual property or IP. This can include extensions, components, integration tools, whatever. And a lot of times you guys can develop these on a cloud platform. I'm not biased or anything, but we have the Oracle Cloud Platform at Oracle, but obviously there's tons of other vendors out there. And by developing these tools on top of that cloud platform, you can offer it to multiple customers. Find something that works and is repeatable and offer it to multiple customers. And then a lot of times too, most cloud platforms have their own marketplace for partners or companies to promote these solutions. With Oracle, we have the Oracle Cloud Marketplace. Check it out if you have a chance. But again, pretty much all the cloud platforms out there have their own marketplace to promote these IP products on there. All right. So the next step is then locking in the recurring revenue. So here we're just going to look at the open source licensing model. And on the left here, we have the traditional on-premise licensing. On the right with cloud. So first, looking at the traditional on-premise licensing model, subscription is really the primary revenue model for open source, especially when it comes to open source databases. So that subscription, usually, some sort of bundle, might include a license support. That's how it is with MySQL. Or with some products, if they don't own the IP, it might just be support only. So they might just be offering support for someone else's open source product. A lot of times with open source, when it comes to databases, it's license per server. That's a really easy licensing metric. And this avoids substantial upfront licensing fees. And whenever you have a subscription, the great benefit to the customer or the end user is that it avoids vendor lock-in. So 1-year subscription, if they're not happy with it after that 1 year, they don't have to renew it. They're not obligated. It's not a perpetual license that they're stuck with forever. They can move on to a different vendor after that subscription is up. Now with cloud, obviously with database, the popular way to do it is database as a service. You guys might be already familiar with how people price this. Usually you can either charge by consumption rates, how much end user is using that database, every month, every year, whatever. Charge them a usage rate, or there can be a flat monthly fee, which basically gives them unlimited usage. And obviously there's also the pure hosting model, or someone, a company procures their own license, brings their own license, and just puts it in someone else's data center. So how to create a revenue annuity. So if you have someone using an open source product, and they're paying for the commercial version when they're getting support, promote the benefits of having access to that product support. Does the revenue depend on an open source database? Then they're going to want to have some sort of insurance policy in case something happens. Who are they going to call when if there's an issue? If this is mission critical, business critical stuff. They're not going to have time to go to Google the problem, go in some sort of chat room or discussion forum, type a question, and wait till some random person, wherever, answers that question. They need dial tone. They need to be able to call someone right away and get that 24/7 support. And also, does the product offer benefits in addition to support? So again, these commercial open source vendors, a lot of times will add in additional tools, management tools or advanced features around security, high availability, replication, whatever. So these additional tools are really important to keep in mind, because you don't want to just sell the support option. So again, support is obviously a key benefit, of having a commercial open source product. But what happens when your customer, hasn't had a need for support in a few years, or maybe they've never used it? They're going to say, why am I paying for this? I've never needed the support. So it's important to expand on the additional benefits of enterprise product, with a commercial product, to help your customers realize the true value of paying for open source products, and to make sure they keep renewing that, and that make sure you guys keep getting that recurring business every year that you can count on. And finally, maybe this is a lazy one, but I think it's a good one. It's just ask. Ask your customers about their open source initiatives and strategies. As we've seen earlier in the presentation, open source usage is rapidly increasing, especially at the database layer. So it's very likely that your customers are thinking about this. So, familiarize yourself with open source database options or offerings. Embrace it, love it. It's probably the future. At MySQL, we're always here to help, and Don will talk about that later. But don't be afraid. Start the discussion. Here are just some helpful, kind of open-ended questions that you guys or your salespeople can bring up to customers to kind of get that open source software strategy discussion started. So I'm not going to read these off. You guys can see them here, and you also get a copy of this. But again, these are just kind of helpful for you guys to have if you want to start that conversation, with your end users. All right, so that's it for me. So I'm going to bring Don on here to get the last portion here, which is talking a little bit about MySQL. And Don, I'll go ahead and drive the PowerPoint for you.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dawn Thurston. I am a channel manager here, specifically with the MySQL team, and I work primarily with a lot of our public sector partners and resellers, but have worked on the with the commercial folks for many, many years before I took on this role. Next slide, please. So MySQL is the #1 most popular open source database on the market. It's #2, only behind Oracle database. So the product is very popular, and it is the original MySQL product. I got into a discussion with this programmer that worked for Oracle that thought Postgres was the first MySQL product, and we got into an argument about it, and I was like, this is my job, right? So anyway, but so all of those other open source MySQL products that Nick listed earlier, like Maria and Postgres and a couple others, are derivatives or forks of the original MySQL. So Oracle does, even though it's open source, Oracle does own the code for MySQL. And according to everybody and all the analysts, Oracle has done a great job with MySQL and keeping it current, and keeping it up to date, and making it better and stronger and more reliable. Next slide, please. So if you are familiar with the LAMP stack, that M in the LAMP stack is MySQL. It's the leading database for web and cloud applications, and the architecture, really makes it the de facto standard for a lot of those kinds of apps. And we have a long list of applications that use MySQL as at least a part of their core database strategy, and it really, is the product that kind of drives the web. We have, as far as performance is concerned and scalability, most people are really shocked when they kind of dig into the numbers and see what how scalable the product is, as well as the ease of use and ease of administration. And it's very easy to set up and easy to become familiar with using MySQL. So, we can support DBAs of very low skill level and very high skill level with the same product. It really just depends on, the requirements of the application and how it's implemented. Next slide, please. Nick, next slide. Thanks. So when we talk about MySQL, this is kind of our money slide, and we always talk about, Facebook and PayPal and some of the all the top web properties do rely on MySQL as part of their core functionality, and a lot of the games that we all use, like Candy Crush and my favorite word game, Words with Friends, as well as companies like Dropbox and Best Buy, all rely on MySQL because it is so scalable. And it's a very mature technology. The product's been in the market for over 20 years. And that really does have quite a few benefits for our partners as well as for our customers. Next slide, please, Nick. But it really has been a digital disruptor for many large enterprises as well as small companies. So, and because it is a free download and easily available, that's how so many companies started with MySQL. And then as their platforms matured, they stuck with it because it was able to scale. One of the kind of first enterprise customers that we started supporting is a very large telco out of Europe, and also we have telcos all around the world, including Asia. And it supports, that's the database that does all of the logging and tracks all of the calls that we all make, as well as all of the text messages. So if you can, just imagine keeping track of all of that information, backing up that information, being able to provide it when needed for compliance reasons. We also support all of the booking data, and everybody uses PayPal all over the world, and MySQL is kind of the infrastructure that they use for their fraud detection. I talked about Candy Crush a little bit, as well as Facebook, which is the #1 product, and because it is so scalable. And what's different, if you're not familiar with it, what's different about the way that we scale with MySQL is that we scale out. So like the folks at all of these companies, they use white box servers, and when they run out of space, they just add another server, and they're able to replicate MySQL to another server and just continue to support their customers. Next slide, please. So it's the scalability and the reliability. If you think about these these types of applications, it's kind of mind-boggling, but MySQL really is kind of the core of many of their database activities, and a core of many of these applications. So we still maintain, even though you can find MySQL on the Oracle page, we still do have a MySQL.com website, and it's in my opinion, a lot easier to find information there. But there you can kind of see the different additions and which features are available in which version of the product. And we also have the cluster product, which we really did develop for the telcos that use it. The standard edition really just has many of the same features as Community, except that it does come with 24/7 support. And Enterprise is really the core product that most of our partners really focus on, and what the majority of our installations are around MySQL Enterprise. And that's also the same product that we built our cloud service around. Next slide, please. But for any information on our support or on our products and all of the different features, MySQL.com is really the best place to go. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide because we talked about the advanced features here, and some of the most important ones are around the security. So when we talk about the high availability functionality and a built-in database firewall, as well as being able to do database encryption and auditing, all of those features are only available in the Enterprise Edition. So, for customers who are always looking to, improve their security, the database is really the place to start, so that, if you are hacked, if somebody gets the data, it's already secure, and hopefully they won't be able to get to it. The monitoring tools and the query analyzer, those are all a part of the Enterprise Edition, as well as the backup tool. Because if you just want to back up the database without having the enterprise level backup that comes with Enterprise Edition, it can be a very long process, as well as when you try to restore it, it can be very, very challenging. And the only thing, in addition to what Nick talked about on the support side, is that in addition to just 24/7 kind of how-to and break-fix support, we also have consultative support, which means that if a customer is planning some upgrade, or if they have, question about how to, kind of best take advantage of MySQL, they can submit those kinds of questions as well to the Oracle support team, who developed the product, who maintain the product, who are certified in the product. So it really is a kind of another level of support that we can offer that most other companies can't. Next slide, please. So the other thing that we have for our partners and for folks that are interested is we have some really strong training, and that's one of the things Nick's been working on the past year, is getting a lot of that, those training tools up to date for MySQL Enterprise, as well as MySQL Cloud Service. And another thing that's unique, next slide please, Nick, the Cloud Service is the same exact product in the cloud as it is in the on-premise or the subscription edition, which is, again, it's unique. So if a customer wants to migrate from the subscription version to the cloud version, those same databases will be able to move simply and easily to Oracle Cloud. Most of our competitors, including, AWS and Microsoft Azure, the product that they use for MySQL or for SQL in the cloud is not the same as the on-premise product. So, there's a bit of lock-in there, even though, everybody talks about MySQL being open, or and everybody thinks that, that things are open, but there is some lock-in in the cloud versions of many of those, in those cloud offerings. So our combination is built on the Oracle Platform as a Service. So, and the pricing is really quite equivalent between the subscription version or the on-premise and the cloud version of the product. So it's a very simple and automated and integrated way, for customers to quickly be able to get onto cloud, and it's, readily available. It is the same product as I talked about. It's enterprise ready. So, and we have, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the incentives that we have for customers and for partners to go out and try MySQL in the cloud. But that's really going to be something that we're pushing very heavily in the next year or so. Next slide, please. So some of the things that are a little bit unique about our cloud offering, I think the main thing is that it really does give customers complete choice in what's being deployed, because they can easily move between, the Oracle Cloud, as well as that same workload could run on a private cloud, and that same workload could run on a server in their own data center. So that's a very, that gives a lot of choice that most other cloud vendors can't provide. But if you think about it, Oracle owns the hardware, Oracle owns the software, as well as we built out our data centers and networking to be able to have a very competitive offering, even though, admittedly, we are late to the game when it comes to the Oracle Cloud, but we have the company has decided that it's going to be competitive, and it's going to be very price competitive as well as technically competitive, as well as speed and reliability, and that's what we're going to do. So when we look at the security, we talked a little bit previously about encryption and authentication, audit and backup that's available with MySQL, no matter where it's deployed. It's also quite scalable. And when we talk about being able to get the support directly from the source, I think that's very important for customers. And as a partner, when you're talking to your customers about it and being able to tell them that, when the support that they have is not going to be, some kind of third-party thing. It's not going to be something that you have to worry about or apologize for. It really is, straight from the source. And being able to lower your overall cost of operations is something that, lots of large corporations are looking at MySQL for, because, so many applications that have been developed and used for years and years and years that use a particular database because, that's all that was available at that time. If they really take a fresh look at the application, many customers are considering MySQL for more of their applications. And we already know that wherever Oracle database is, or wherever some of the larger databases or more traditional, traditional databases are, there's MySQL is somewhere in those environments. And many, many customers, because of the cost, are looking to move more and more of their workloads over to MySQL. Next slide, please. So some of the use cases for the MySQL Cloud service, I think the easiest and most obvious one is for dev and test. And because it's so easy and fast to get started for end users and for developers, and because of the way that we can move between cloud and on-premise solutions, I think that is going to be the easiest and best way for many of our customers to get started with the MySQL Cloud service. And we're already starting to see a lot of that. And those applications can easily work together with a hybrid environment, with part of the app or part of the environment being in the cloud and the other half being in the customer's data center. Next slide, please. So this is from the Oracle Open World last year when we were talking about comparing AWS, who is the market leader, with MySQL and with the Oracle Cloud in general. But I've been talking about the MySQL Cloud service, but you can't really talk about that without talking about Oracle Cloud, because our database is going to sit within the Oracle Cloud deployment. But when you look at the ability to really move the same workloads in between the on-premise deployment and a cloud deployment, also, we've had lots of customers, come to us because of the cost of AWS, especially to migrate off of it is a lot more than people expect it to be. Also, some of the data transfer and networking costs can get to be very, very expensive. And we really do have a very competitive offering that I think, both customers and partners will be surprised at, but I would encourage you all to take a look. If you go to oracle.com/cloud, which is not on the slide, but if you go to /cloud, it shows you all the different, offerings. There's also a free 30-day trial or a $300 credit, but that's supposed to kind of work out to 30 days. And I'd encourage you guys to take a look and try it out and see what we think and give us your feedback. Next slide, please. But Oracle is going to be very competitive in this space, and I would just encourage you to take a look at what we have to offer. And some vendors know enterprise, others know cloud, and we are determined to master both and to have the best of breed in the Cloud 2.0 products and services. I think that's the end of the presentation, and we're going to open it up for questions.
All right, Nick, ready for Q&A?
Sure. Do it.
All right, great. So thank you for presenting all that stuff. For those of you who might have missed it at the very beginning, if you would like to ask a question, you may do so using the chat window located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen or the question box. Some of the questions that did come up during the presentation: what are the advantages of MySQL Cloud Service over AWS RDS or Aurora?
I'll take that.
John,
one.
you want me to take that? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that our advantage is that it is the exact same product, whether you are running it in the cloud or whether you're running it on premise, and that it is, you can easily move between one or the other, and you don't have to worry about, something that you developed in the cloud because you wanted it to, you wanted fast and easy startup. And then if it grows and grows and grows and you decide, oh no, I need to use this on premise, you can easily, you could easily move it to an on-site database and an on-site server. So I think that's our big advantage.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and just to add on to that, Don, I would say with like Amazon, with the RDS for MySQL, like Amazon uses our Community Edition. So as opposed to Oracle, if you get our MySQL Cloud Service, we use our Enterprise Edition. So kind of just going back to that slide to show all the additional features you get with the MySQL Cloud Service, the security, the HA, encryption, and then all the management tools. That's all the stuff that comes with the MySQL Cloud Service. And those are things you don't get with the Amazon RDS because they're using our community version for that.
Excellent. So what, in your opinion, is the profile of a successful open source partner?
You or me, Don?
Go ahead, Nick.
I mean, I would say if we look at some of our most successful partners, I mean, talking from the MySQL perspective, they're not necessarily like huge companies. We obviously do work with some big companies, but I say they're medium-sized companies. They have a decent-sized sales force. A few salespeople, and also a few maybe say DBAs or technical people that can work in conjunction. A lot of times, salespeople can help feed, by selling licenses that helps feed their services business, and vice versa. Services business help feed the licensing business. So I think our partners that are most successful, have a good balance between the two of them. They also, embrace new technologies and, not afraid to disrupt, things out there. And also, I mean, for our perspective, they're willing to work with us, right? So it's, a mutually beneficial relationship that we have with our partners, and we're there to help them. They're there to help us, and kind of just open line of communication we have. At least from my perspective, I don't know if you have anything more specific, Don, but I mean that's what I see.
The only other thing that I would say is that we, the Oracle Partner Network, or OPN, you do have the ability to get a lot of training before you join, and kind of talk to your customers and see what interests they have and where your best opportunity would be for for Oracle products and services. But certainly MySQL is one of the easier, simpler ones to get involved with. And we also do have a remarketer program, which means that you can buy through any of our distribution partners like Arrow. I was going to say Tech Data. I guess Tech Data and Avnet are the same thing now. So Arrow or Avnet are the two distributors that we currently work with. So if you have a relationship with them, you have the ability to resell both the licenses and the cloud service. But I would really, we've really worked hard on getting our training and up to date, and I would just encourage you to take a look at what's out there on Oracle Partner Network. Also here, our team lead is Vicki Holteen. Her email address is here and the correct spelling of her name. So anybody that is interested in finding out more about the partner, about the partner program, please feel free to reach out to Vicki.
And I'll say too. So also, if you guys on the BAFI Cloud Services community page, the page you guys run, we also have a MySQL has a microsite on there. So you can always, I think if you go to the top, there's sponsors. You can go to MySQL, and you can always check out like our microsite on the Cloud Services community page to get a lot of information, and also directly to some of these links too when it comes to the local partner network. So feel free to check that out as well.
Fantastic. Thanks for the plug. What is the average deal size for MySQL?
So a single server list price is $5,000. That's for a 1-year subscription. And the way we sell it on the cloud is something they call OCPUs. And it kind of comes out for 1 year, kind of comes out to be about the same price for 2 OCPUs, around $5,000 list. So, and our average deal size is probably about 2 servers, which is, with the partner discount, the net back to Oracle is, I would say, the average would probably be between $7,000 and $10,000. So we're really, when we say low margin, high volume, that's what we mean. So, it's not a high price product. It is very easy to, get that initial sale or to get a customer interested in, using Community, help them set up their first database, and as it grows, be able to build that annuity service with your MySQL customers.
Well, great. Well, I think that covers all the questions we got at this point. So, Nick, Dawn, thank you very much for offering up your time, sharing your knowledge with us. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having us. Also, are you going to make the presentation available out on your website?
Yep. We'll have that out to the audience in the next probably 24 to 48 hours. We'll have the recording and the slides up as well.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
My pleasure. Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Just like to echo everyone's sentiments there, but as you're leaving, do please take a few moments to fill out your post-event survey. We love hearing everyone's feedback and use it for future events. But this does conclude today's webinar. Please have a wonderful day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.